I would give anything to bury that final winter I spent at the cursed farmhouse near Blackwood Creek, Montana, somewhere in the deepest, darkest corner of my mind. But every time the wind howls outside, every time that thick, gray Montana fog presses against my window, I hear it again. The sound of my own bones cracking. People always tell Skinwalker stories the same way. I was camping in the woods. I saw a tall, strange creature, and I ran. What a pathetic misunderstanding. A true ancient nightmare doesn't come across you in some open field. It chooses its prey. It watches you for days, sometimes weeks. It learns the way you walk, the sound of your voice, the smallest movements on your face, even those private jokes you share with your family, the ones nobody else should know. And when the time is right, it enters the safest place in your life, your home, wearing the face of the person you love the most. And it doesn't stop until it slowly grinds away at your sanity, like sandpaper against your mind. My name is Ethan. That winter, after my father's sudden death, I inherited our cattle ranch in one of the most isolated parts of Montana. The nearest neighbor was 12 miles away. It was just me, my wife Sarah, and my 7-year-old son, Toby. The winter was brutal. The snow reached nearly 7 feet deep, trapping us in the middle of those massive pine forests, completely cut off from the outside world. Everything began on the coldest night of that winter, with a whisper that came from behind the barn door. It was late November. Around 9 o'clock that night, I noticed something was wrong with the horses and cattle inside the barn. The animals were acting like they had lost their minds. These were creatures that had survived Montana storms their entire lives, but now they were throwing themselves against the walls, screaming and panicking like there was some invisible fire burning inside the barn. I told Sarah to stay inside the house and lock the doors. Then I grabbed my double-barrel shotgun. I turned on my heavy-duty flashlight and stepped out into the thick fog and snow. The cold was so intense that my breath froze in the air almost instantly. When I reached the massive wooden doors of the barn, the noise inside suddenly stopped, like someone had cut it off with a knife. Complete silence. The only thing I could hear was the terrified breathing of the animals. I slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. My flashlight moved across the stalls. Every single animal was staring at the same place. Their eyes were wide, almost bulging out of their heads. They were all looking toward the darkest corner of the barn, the old hay storage area in the back. I aimed my flashlight at that corner. At first, I couldn't see anything, just a strange wetness covering the hay. I stepped closer. It was blood, but not normal blood. It was dark, almost black, thick, clotted, and the smell was rotten. Then, from behind the hay bales, a voice rose up, a person crying, sobbing, broken and desperate. "Ethan, please turn off the light. My eyes hurt so much." My breath caught in my throat. That voice, it was my sister Clara's voice. The same sister I lost to cancer 3 years earlier. Every detail was perfect. Her tone, her way of speaking, even the rhythm of her crying. For a moment, I convinced myself my mind was playing tricks on me. The isolation, my father's death, the stress. Maybe my brain was creating something that wasn't there. "Clara," I whispered, unable to stop my voice from shaking. I raised the shotgun toward the sound. Slowly, something began to rise from behind the hay, and when the beam of my flashlight hit it, a wave of pure terror, unlike anything I had ever felt before, ran down my spine. That thing was not human. It had the body of a deer, but its back legs were twisted backward. Its head looked like something that had never finished forming, like a melting candle made of flesh, a disgusting, hairless mass of skin and muscle. Yet somehow, it carried the rough shape of my sister's face. Its eyes were completely black. No whites, no reflection, nothing. And staring directly at me, it spoke again, using my sister's innocent voice. "Ethan, why won't you let me come inside? Mom is waiting for us." I froze. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. My sense of reality started to collapse. The creature stood up with a flexibility that should have been impossible. Its bones cracked and shifted, but it didn't rise onto two legs. It moved onto all four of its twisted limbs, bending in ways no living thing should. I aimed the shotgun and pulled the trigger. The deafening blast echoed through the barn. The creature was thrown backward by the impact, but it didn't fall. Instead, it moved with impossible speed. It climbed up the wooden beams of the ceiling, its limbs bending in ways that made my stomach turn. Then, through an old ventilation opening in the roof, it slipped into the darkness and disappeared. The only things it left behind were that horrible smell of rotten flesh and the black blood covering the hay. I ran back to the house. I locked the door behind me 3 times. I pulled every bolt and checked every window. Sarah was sitting in the living room, holding Toby tightly. The moment she saw my face, pale as a ghost, she knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she screamed. I told her I saw a bear. I told her it had scared the animals, and I fired the shotgun to drive it away. I couldn't tell her the truth, because I knew that if I did, that would be the moment we both started losing our minds. But the real nightmare wasn't that the thing escaped into the woods. The real nightmare was that it had already come inside the house with us. After that night, the rules inside the house changed, but I wasn't the one who made them. Something invisible surrounding the property was forcing us to follow its own rules. The first thing it affected was our dreams. Those stories of a dark presence pressing down on you while you couldn't move. Inside that isolated Montana farmhouse, it became something far worse. In the dream, the 3 of us were sitting in the living room. Outside, a massive crowd of people surrounded the house. Hundreds of them. They were pounding on the windows, but the terrifying part was this. Every single person outside had my face, all of them, and in my own voice, they screamed, "The one inside is fake. Open the door. The real Ethan is out here." Every night, I woke up covered in cold sweat. By the middle of December, the physical abnormalities started. My wife, Sarah, told me that while she was cooking in the kitchen, she would often hear my voice behind her. Double quotes, "Sarah, can you pass me the salt?" But every time she turned around, there was no one there. One day, I found my son Toby sitting in his room, talking to himself. He was playing with his toys on the floor, staring into the dark space underneath his bed, and smiling. I walked over and crouched beside him. "Toby, who are you talking to, buddy?" He turned those innocent 7-year-old eyes toward me. and said something that made every organ inside my body feel like it had turned to ice. I'm talking to my new dad. Dad. He sings me songs you don't know, but I'm mad at him because sometimes when he talks, his mouth opens way too wide. I'm scared of him. I grabbed my flashlight and looked underneath the bed. There was nothing there. Nothing except a small, wet mark on the dust. It looked like the print of a deer's hoof, but it had fingers. That was the moment I understood. The thing, the Skinwalker. It hadn't been starving out in the woods. It was slowly weakening the walls around our home, using our fear, using our minds, using our own doubts against us. Just like those old stories about haunted places and dark rituals. It wasn't trying to break through the door. It needed an invitation. It couldn't enter unless we believed in it, unless we played along with its game, unless we let it in. Exactly at 3:14 that night, every light inside the house suddenly went out. The generator had stopped, and then I heard footsteps coming from the kitchen. Sarah's footsteps. The wooden floor creaked. Creak, creak, creak. I jumped out of bed. I looked beside me, where Sarah had been sleeping. She was gone. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped into the hallway. I followed the sound of those footsteps. In the darkness, standing in front of the kitchen counter, was the silhouette of a woman. Her long hair fell over her shoulders. She was wearing Sarah's nightgown. Sarah, I called out. What are you doing here? The generator is down. Come back to the bedroom. The figure slowly started turning toward me, but the movement wasn't human. Her hips stayed completely still, while everything above her waist, her chest, her neck, her head, rotated 180 degrees around. I raised the flashlight and pointed it at her face. It was Sarah, but something was wrong. The skin on her face looked loose, like it didn't belong to her. The corners of her eyes drooped unnaturally. She stared at me. Then she smiled. A horrible smile. A smile no human being should ever make. And she laughed. The sound coming from her mouth was a disgusting mixture of Sarah's voice and my own. Two voices speaking at the exact same time. Sarah is sleeping upstairs. Ethan, I was just hungry. The sight in that kitchen made my fingers go numb. The flashlight slipped from my hand and hit the wooden floor. It rolled across the room, its beams sliding underneath the kitchen counter. I was left standing in complete darkness. The only light came from the flashlight lying upside down on the floor, a weak flickering glow that illuminated the creature's hanging loose face from below. My brain was screaming one thing, run, but my legs refused to move. They felt nailed to the floor. That thing, that twisted shape wearing Sarah's body, took a step toward me, and with that single step, I heard it, the sound of its bones shifting beneath the flesh, the sickening crack of its joints bending in the wrong direction. Then, from upstairs, a scream tore through the house. Ethan, Ethan, where are you? That voice, that was the real Sarah Dot. It was coming from the second floor, from the direction of Toby's room. The moment I looked upward, the thing in the kitchen moved. It launched itself toward the ceiling with impossible speed, like gravity didn't exist. In the darkness, all I heard was the wooden beams above me groaning under its weight. Then the sound of a heavy body crashing through the kitchen window and landing in the snow outside. I grabbed the flashlight from the floor and ran. I flew up the stairs. When I burst into Toby's room, Sarah was there. She had our son wrapped in her arms, hiding in the corner of the bed. She was holding a small kitchen knife, and when the flashlight hit my face, she looked at me with pure terror. "Don't come closer," Sarah screamed through her tears. "Don't come closer, Ethan. You were just here. You walked into this room and told me we had to go downstairs. Your voice, your face, everything was exactly the same." I pointed the flashlight at myself. "Sarah, it's me. I was downstairs. The generator went out. That thing in the kitchen, it wasn't me. It wasn't you." I watched her face, and I saw the doubt in her eyes. That was when I finally understood. The creature's greatest weapon wasn't its claws. It wasn't its teeth. It wasn't even its ability to imitate us. Its greatest weapon was destroying the trust between us. From that moment on, every time we looked at each other, a single thought would crawl through our minds like a parasite. Is that really them? That night, until the sun came up, the three of us stayed inside Toby's room. We pushed a heavy dresser against the door. I sat there with my double-barrel shotgun in my hands, watching the doorway without blinking. Outside in the hallway, someone walked back and forth until morning. Sometimes it sounded like my father's heavy boots. Sometimes it sounded like Toby's small bare feet. They called out to us. They begged us to open the door. They cried. They screamed. The voices kept changing, blending together, becoming mechanical, then human again. When the first light of morning entered through the windows, the sounds finally stopped. I went downstairs, and outside the kitchen door, in the snow, I saw footprints. At first, they looked like a person's bare feet. Then, slowly, they changed into the tracks of a wolf, and after that, into massive, deep hoof marks. The tracks led toward the darkest part of the forest, the place where the trees grew so tightly together that they blocked out the sky. That old rule from the stories we grew up hearing, the rule about things that cannot enter unless they are invited. It was true here, too. It still hadn't fully entered our home, because we hadn't surrendered. We hadn't accepted it. We hadn't given it what it wanted. But one thing was certain. It had already brought us to the edge of madness. 3 days passed after the incident. The blizzard completely buried the trail that was our only connection to the outside world. The radio was dead. The phones were useless. We had enough supplies to survive, but our sanity was running out. Sarah couldn't look me in the eyes anymore when she spoke, and I found myself analyzing every single thing she did. Every movement, every word. Is that how she normally says that? Does that laugh really belong to her? By the evening of the 4th day, Toby suddenly became very sick. His fever shot up to 104 degrees. His consciousness came and went. He kept mumbling over and over. He pointed underneath his bed and whispered, "It's coming. It wants to wear my new clothes." Sarah was falling apart. "Ethan, we have to get to town. No matter what happens, we have to go. Toby is dying." Driving through that storm, through that much snow, trying to reach the highway, it was suicide. Our snowmobile was in the barn, but getting there meant crossing that open stretch of land, the same land where that thing was waiting. "Okay," I said. I'll get the snowmobile ready. You two stay inside until I come back. Do not open that door for anyone. Anyone. Even if you hear my voice. Sarah nodded, and for the first time in days, I saw the desperation of my real wife. The Sarah I knew. The Sarah I loved. I grabbed my shotgun, strapped on my flashlight. Then I opened the heavy wooden door and stepped outside. The blizzard hit my face like a whip. I could barely see my own hands. That 50-meter walk to the barn felt like climbing Mount Everest. When I reached the barn, I unlocked the chains and stepped inside. The cold hit me instantly. The animals were all dead. Not from the cold, no. Their rib cages had been ripped open by something impossibly strong. Their organs were scattered across the hay, and that horrible, thick, black blood was everywhere. I ran toward the snowmobile in terror. I turned the key. Nothing, Dot. I tried again. Nothing. Again. Then, suddenly, something fell from the ceiling of the barn. Right in front of me, it was me, a body lying there in the blood. My face, my clothes, my body. It looked exactly like me. Its chest was badly injured. It was crawling on the ground, struggling to breathe. It reached its hand toward me, and using my voice, the voice of a dying man, it whispered, "Ethan, that thing got inside the house. It took the snowmobile keys from me. I'm the real one, Ethan. I couldn't protect my wife. I couldn't protect my son." My vision blurred. The person lying on the floor was me. It was like looking into a mirror. If that was me, then who was I? My mind completely collapsed. That feeling, that thing people call the uncanny valley, that terrifying moment where something looks human but your soul knows it isn't. That was exactly what I was experiencing. Which one of us was human, and which one was the monster? I raised my shotgun toward myself, lying on the floor. His hands were shaking. His eyes were filled with pure human fear. I was about to pull the trigger. Then the thing on the ground smiled. The fear in its eyes disappeared instantly, and its mouth opened into that same impossible grin. That horrible smile stretching far beyond what any human face should allow. And that's when I understood. They were distracting me. This was a trap. I wasn't the target. Sarah and Toby were. I fired the shotgun behind me without even looking. Then I ran out of the barn. I pushed through the storm toward the house. The wind screamed behind me, but beneath it, I heard voices. Hundreds of them. All my voice, echoing through the forest. "You're too late. You're too late." When I reached the house, I saw the front door standing wide open. Inside, there was nothing but darkness, and from within that darkness, I heard Sarah's calm, cheerful voice. "You finally made it, sweetheart. Look, Toby's fever is gone. Come inside. Dinner is ready." The moment I stepped through that open doorway, the air inside the house was colder than the storm outside. The pitch-black hallway was broken only by the faint, flickering glow of a candle coming from the kitchen. I raised my shotgun. The barrel shook in my trembling hands. "Sarah," my voice echoed through the dark hallway, like it belonged to a stranger. "We're in the kitchen, sweetheart." Her voice came from inside. That cheerful voice, that calm, peaceful tone. It sounded so normal. And that was the most terrifying thing about it. That kind of normality, in that moment, was the most horrifying thing in the world. I reached the kitchen doorway. There were 3 candles burning on the table. Sarah was sitting at the head of it. Her back was turned toward me. She was gently stroking Toby's hair. Toby was sitting in the chair across from her, staring down at the table. Neither of them spoke. The only sound was Sarah's hand moving slowly through our son's hair. Over and over. Sarah, Toby, get up. We're leaving. Now. I pointed the flashlight at them. Sarah slowly turned her head toward me. This time, her face wasn't twisted. Her eyes weren't black. She looked completely normal. She looked like my wife. The real Sarah. The woman I had seen every day for years. There was no madness in her eyes. She smiled at me gently. Where are we going, Ethan? The storm is over. Look, Toby is fine now. I moved the flashlight toward Toby. He slowly lifted his head. His eyes were open. His fever seemed to be gone. He looked at me and whispered, Dad, the man under my bed is gone. Now he sits with us. And then the flashlight beam moved lower. Under the table, where their feet should have been. And that's when I saw it. 2 massive pairs of animal legs, covered in fur, twisted backward, stretching from beneath Sarah and Toby's chairs. Their upper bodies were completely human. My wife, my son, but underneath the table, hidden in the darkness, their bodies had merged with the creature's lower half. One enormous mass of flesh, carrying 2 human faces. My mind shattered. I couldn't even scream. My real wife, my real son, they were already gone. Stretching from beneath Sarah and Toby's chairs, their upper bodies were completely human. My wife, my son, but underneath the table, hidden in the darkness, their bodies had merged with the creature's lower half. One enormous mass of flesh, carrying 2 human faces. My mind shattered. I couldn't even scream. My real wife, my real son, they were already gone. That thing had taken their flesh, their bones, their voices, their memories. It had sewn everything onto itself. Sarah's head slowly stretched backward. That impossible smile returned, a grin that no human face could make. And when she spoke, it wasn't Sarah's voice. It wasn't one voice. It was many. My father's thought, my sister Clara's, my own, and dozens of voices I had never heard before, all speaking together, like a choir from something ancient and unholy. We are a family now, Ethan. Only one piece is missing. Come inside. I raised the shotgun toward the table. I didn't even aim. I pulled both triggers. The candles went out in the darkness. I heard the sound of flesh tearing, the cracking of bones, and that mechanical many-voiced laughter rising from every room in the house at the same time. I didn't look back. I ran. I threw myself out of the house and into the storm, into the snow, into that freezing Montana night. I don't know how far I ran. I don't know how long I crawled through the snow. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was the headlights of a snowplow passing along the highway as the first light of morning appeared. Months passed. They found me nearly frozen to death after spending several long weeks in a psychiatric hospital. They finally released me. Everyone says I lost my family in a violent bear attack that night. They say everything else was just something my mind created because of the trauma. No one believes me. Now I live alone in a small apartment in Seattle. I sold the ranch. I never stepped foot on that land again. But the nightmare never ended. Last night, exactly at 3:14 in the morning, I received a notification on my phone. It was a leaked feed from the new owner's smart security camera system at the old farmhouse in Montana. I don't know why, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the recording. The camera showed the empty, dark kitchen. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, from the corner of the screen, a shadow appeared. It slowly moved toward the camera, and then I saw it. It was me, my face, my clothes, my walk, everything. It stopped directly in front of the camera. It leaned closer to the lens, and then it moved its lips. From the computer speakers in this very room where I am sitting right now, it whispered in my exact voice, "I'm a perfect copy, aren't I, Ethan? But everyone here is waiting for you to come back, especially the person you'll see when you look into the mirror." I closed the video immediately. And now, as I write these words, I'm afraid to look at the full-length mirror across my room, because just a moment ago, from the pitch-black reflection behind me, I heard someone whisper in my own voice, "Just come inside."